In today's video, we're talking about the Scottsdale DUI Crime Lab. So if you're charged with a DUI and it happens in Scottsdale and you're arrested by the Scottsdale police and you're charged into the Scottsdale City Court, it's very likely that they drew a blood sample from you, and that blood is going to go and be analyzed by somebody. Scottsdale has its own crime lab, which is actually very big and new. It's located right on Miller and McKellips. It's that big building. They even have a basketball court over there. There's a lot of activity that goes on there, but they test a lot of blood samples there. They will go in there and they'll go through processing. Some of the samples are also being sent to the Arizona Department of Public Safety, to their crime lab, but we're not talking about that crime lab today. We're only talking about the Scottsdale Crime Lab. And so I want to tell you a little bit more about it, because Scottsdale Crime Lab, it's very important, especially as it relates to DUI cases. Many people don't understand just how complicated and how involved DUI cases can be. There's a good argument that it is actually the most complicated, most scientifically involved type of crime that exists anywhere, because of all the testing that goes on, because of all the analysis, because of all the proper protocols that need to be followed. It's a lot. And so a lot of defense attorneys think that they can go in and handle a DUI case, even though they don't know really anything about the science behind how it works. They can walk you through the process, but they don't know the details on the operations of a crime lab and how a proper analysis is done. And so I want to give you a little bit of insight into that. Now, the current crime lab is run by a woman named Chris Kano, and she's got a lot of experience working for the city of Scottsdale. She's been doing it for a long time. A little bit about her background. So she has her master's in chemistry from the University of South Florida, Bachelor of Science in Biochemistry from Florida State University. From 1995 to 2002, she was a forensic biologist and a crime laboratory analyst for the U.S. Army Criminal Investigation Lab and the Florida Department of Law Enforcement. So that's a long time, 1995 to 2002. Since 2002, up until now, she's been working for the city of Scottsdale as a crime laboratory manager, and currently she is the crime lab manager. Crime laboratory manager is her official title, where she is managing day-to-day operations. She's the quality assurance manager. She conducts the forensics on DNA analysis and all sorts of stuff. So she's involved in a lot of different things, and she's managing a crime lab that historically has had a lot of problems, even very recently. So in 2013, before the great R&R Law Group was born, there were a lot of issues with the Scottsdale Crime Lab. There was the machines that were doing the analysis on blood results for DUI cases, called the gas chromatography machine, was all out of whack. They were doing all sorts of really finicky things there. The software was spitting out what looked like literal garbage. I mean, it was printing out things that didn't look like it was proper analysis, and they refused to take the machines that were producing those results out of service. They were just making some software changes, and they were still running cases through. Well, the problem with that is that those results are not following the scientific protocols. They're not following the certain quality assurance principles that are in place to produce a scientifically accurate and a precise result. So they were still moving forward on their DUI cases. A number of defense attorneys took these cases all the way up, took to appeals courts and all sorts of things. That was in 2013. More recently, let me back up. Since that happened in 2013, the crime lab has kind of been in disarray ever since then. A lot of the people who were responsible for operating and maintaining the crime lab at that point left. They just left Arizona. They no longer wanted anything to do with that, because a lot of what they were doing was tainted. And so a lot of DUI cases got overturned and dismissed, and there were a lot of problems with it. Different labs were testing the blood samples for a very long period of time. The Scottsdale Crime Lab was not really even functioning. They had it, but they had nobody to actually analyze the samples, because no criminalists wanted to come in and work there. They were all working elsewhere, and everybody else left. People went to New Mexico and Nevada and all over the country after it came under the scrutiny after what they were doing in 2013. Again, as of recently, there was another criminalist, somebody else who was testing blood samples, who was then found to be breaking policies and procedures and protocols in the Scottsdale Crime Lab. They were doing things that were in violation of policy. There was an investigation. They found that this person committed some misconduct, but nothing that warranted an integrity violation. Essentially, the person who was running the samples on DUI cases had worked with another officer to view some records of a body cam from an ex-girlfriend and you're not allowed to do that. You can't go access those records. Just because you work for Scottsdale or for the Scottsdale Police Department or for the Scottsdale Crime Lab doesn't mean that you have unfettered access to go look at whatever you want. That stuff is protected for good reason. And so this criminalist was going through and actually looking at stuff that he shouldn't have been looking at and got in trouble for it. So he's no longer with the agency. So now we're looking to this woman, Chris Cano, to kind of manage the crime lab and run the operation. She's somebody who's been doing it for a long time. I don't know much about her personally. I met her once and we didn't speak. It was just a very quick hello, and that was that. So the important point being, the crime lab is something that you need to pay a lot of attention to. If you're watching this video because you've been charged with a DUI and you're concerned about it, many times people will come into our office and they'll say, look, yeah, I had too much to drink and I was driving. Is that the end of the case? What else can you do for me? There's nothing else that can be done. I did it, right? I was drinking and driving. So what else can you do for me? A lot of the defense lawyer's defense takes place in what goes on in the crime lab. You need to be very familiar, very intimate with their internal procedures, their internal policies, how they are operating, what their staffing looks like, who's actually conducting the analysis, what their background looks like. There's a lot of material that we review in order to really break down what's happening behind these closed doors, because the public perception, the perception that they want you to believe in the TV shows and in the movies, are that these crime labs and these forensic scientists and these criminalists and all the fancy names that they call them, analysts and blah, 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 that they all operate sort of with impunity, that there's no misconduct, there's no malfeasance, everything is by the books, everything is accurate, and there's no room for error, when in reality there are a lot of problems. There are systemic problems with how they do their analysis, there's a lot of turnover, a lot of personnel problems, and weird things happen that we can't predict as defense lawyers. There was no way we could have predicted that that other criminalist who was accessing those records improperly was doing that. We could not have anticipated that. Then when he's no longer with the Scottsdale Crime Lab, now the cases that he analyzed are arguably tainted, and that gives our clients a benefit of the doubt. Because look, if he was breaking policy on one thing, he knew he shouldn't have been doing something. He was breaking policy in that regard, and now he's taking that and he's testing samples. Who's to say he's not breaking policies on those other areas of his profession as well? And that's stuff that we try to introduce to a jury to show them that these guys, these people, these men and women who are working at the crime lab are not as maybe 100% accurate as they like you to believe. There are things that are going on that can undermine their work and undermine their criminal case against you. So that's why it's so important you understand this is part of an equation. I have videos on judges, I have videos on prosecutors, I have videos on different courts, and of course all of the other different crimes, but I want to make sure that you're not forgetting this key component of the crime lab, the Scottsdale DUI Crime Lab. A lot of attention goes into this. We focus a lot on what they're doing and how they're doing it so that we can build the best defense possible. So keep that in mind. This is just a tip of the iceberg on what's going on at the Scottsdale Crime Lab. There's a lot more information out there, but if you or somebody you know or love is facing a DUI charge out of the city of Scottsdale, we're going to be dealing with the Scottsdale Crime Lab in your case. So give us a call. We offer free case evaluations. We'll have you come in, we'll sit down, we'll review the facts of your case, make sure you have a clear understanding of how this works, and if it's a good fit to work together, we will. So give us a call. You literally have nothing to lose. We look forward to speaking with you soon, and thanks for watching.